What's up, fellow live loopers and future live loopers? I'm making this video to tell you my story because in the next video, I'm going to be talking about how you can make a decision on what looper you should buy if you're just getting into it or you're looking to upgrade to maybe the 505 MK2 or maybe the 600 or maybe the 500. But I'm going to tell you my story, so hopefully it helps, and this will be a link from that video in the future. And when that video is done, I will link it right here. But anywho, I started off playing on a cruise ship and playing in sandwich shops acoustically for probably about 4 years, right? I came back. I lost my voice on the cruise ship for like 2 months. They just oversang me. And I heard a story about a live looper who was there, and he was like having a pretty, well, an easier time with it because he was able to loop parts and kind of extend jams and things like this. And I was like, man, that sounds good. So like I looked into it. I bought the Digitech JamMan. It sat in my house for like a year before I really started actually trying to use it. My favorite thing to do with it right away was looping choruses. I just loved the fact I could harmonize with myself. And so I started running a mini mixer into that, vocals and guitar. So that gave me an EQ of everything before it hit the looper. And I essentially just loop choruses. Sometimes I would do a breakdown section and be like, I added a stomp pedal too to the ground. Brought that out to shows. It took me a while before I really started dialing it in so that like my levels weren't totally off sometimes when the looper hit, or sometimes you'd be in a room be super reverberous and it's like hearing yourself and knowing that your loop is a good level with what you're doing. That's really where the learning curve is. It's like you just really have to eat it for a little bit. But then after that, I needed more. I was like, I want to loop my verses so that my voice isn't in it, stuff like that. I started to use an XLR switcher. So I'd run my vocal mic into the first mixer, like I told you I already did, with the guitar, and stomp into the looper. But then the other side of the XLR switcher went into a second mini mixer where the looper then met up so that when you click it, it would bypass the looper, and now it would join the looper when it was all done, and you wouldn't get it in the loop. So that's how I started recording my verses as I would go, so I could solo over them later, or so that I could play bass over them later, or something like that, and not have the voice on it. And so I used the Boomerang Phrase 3 as the next looper that I got, because I didn't want to have to just delete my one track every time and start a new one. So I got the Boomerang Phrase 3. Took me all of a month and a half before I started bringing it out to shows. I had to practice with it all the time. I was like, okay, 15 minutes a day. I'm going to put this on my board and I'm going to practice with it. And it took me a while, and I messed up a ton. Like first 3 shows I played, I messed up a ton. But something about that fear of failure makes you learn quicker. So even though it was very uncomfortable, I loved upgrading to the Boomerang. I haven't found anything else that's a floor unit that is even close to the Boomerang until, I mean, the RC300 it was, but the thing is, it was too big for me to fit all my other pedals right in front of me, like how I like with my kick, being able to do the loops engage like real quick right in front of me, and all my other effect pedals. The 300 is like its own board. Now they got the 600, and that thing is actually a good size, and it has mixing capabilities in it. So I got rid of all my mini mixers. You could program the wazoo out of it. Here's a link to my setup with that, and I will have another link for when I post my RC505 tabletop setup also here when it's available. But yeah, so now I got the 600. It's a little bit glitchy at times, but that's because it's a heavy piece of technology. I'm going to tell you that. It's beautiful too. Please subscribe to see the video about how to decide what looper you should get if you're starting or if you're an advanced player. Thank you for listening to my story. I'll catch you soon.